Okay, first drive with the old 62 Savoy. We got the optional reverse lights. I don't know if they work, I don't care. We got the speed holes in the trunk lid. This is weight reduction for the max wedge cars. If anybody knows where I can find one, I'd be happy to have it if I don't get that parts car. It's got some rust. Surprisingly, the floorboards are solid except for one. And the water pump is bad. The bearing, you can hear it missing pretty bad. It's running on 3.5 cylinders. Tires are on. Rust we love so much. Car I would call spangled from every angle because it seems like every body panel's got something going on with it. The seller decided to sell some parts off of it. Did not tell me. Gauge cluster is there. Speedometer cable spinning like hell, so I guess the speedometer probably works. He sold the radio delete plate. He sold the horn button, at least the mechanism. I don't know if the actual little Plymouth emblem was on it. I noticed the door panel was off. I couldn't figure out why, and then I noticed he sold this piece of trim off the passenger door. Oh well. I was really looking for a Valiant road code when I found this. Clean it up, make it run a little better. I'll try to sell it or trade it. We're gonna go for a drive. Alright, here we go. So, like I said, it's running on 3.5 cylinders. Number 1 and number 2 aren't contributing. You pull the plug wire and they're not doing anything. Number 4 isn't doing anything. Pull the valve cover hoping maybe the valves are just tight. They weren't. Could be a blown head gasket between 1 and 2. Could be burnt valves. Number 4 is probably burnt valves. But it also, I noticed the intake rocker was moving about half as much as all the other ones. So I think it's got a bad cam. But in spite of it running on 3.5 cylinders, this thing actually has some power. I'm surprised. Here, hold this. Don't touch anything. Just get your fingers in the screen. There you go. It does not have seat belts. Never did.
Most likely will.
Yeah, if I keep it any real amount of time, it'll have seat belts.
Keep it too long, you're gonna get too attached to it.
No. So here we go. Down the road. Drives really nice. Steers good. I mean, everything seems okay. Brakes work good. Well, brakes work as good as drum brakes do.
I thought drums were better than discs.
No, drums are horrible compared to discs. Especially nowadays because the lining material is crap. They basically figured that only the rear brakes are ever going to be drum anymore, so they don't build them to grip real hard since the rear brakes only do about 30% of the braking. Works really well, which is weird. Seems like every old, clunker I've ever gotten with 3 on the tree, the shifters always wore the hell out. Okay. noticed there's a pretty big gap between second and third. I saw that on somebody else's video where they were driving a 62 Savoy with 3 on the tree at slant 6.
When did they start getting 4? Like
4
sticks?
speed?
Yeah, no, sticks. Stick shifts.
Well, your performance cars had them. I want to say real late 50s. Definitely in the 60s.
Was there a version of this that had one?
Oh yeah.
Would you rather have that?
As far as stick shifts go, I'd probably rather have a 4-speed, but...
No, I meant would you rather have a stick shift?
Oh, no, not at this point in the game. I'd rather have the push-button automatic, but not behind a slant 6. Slant 6 needs, it needs good hard gears. Pretty amazing for as crappy as this thing runs. Doing just fine going down the road. I did notice when we changed that front tire that the upper ball joint was shot. Didn't surprise me. This thing really probably needs a disc brake conversion. Signals blinking.
I do. Good luck with that before. But I think this one's too far gone. They probably ran them tight for too many miles and burned them. And the cam is because, they took all the zinc out of oil. Now there's no protection. Maybe I'll drop a lifter down in there and just run a whole lot of extra zinc. Things you can't put them in first gear while they're rolling or grind the gear. It's non-synchro first gear.
wanted to tell you about this Dodge pickup.
That's Max's house. Okay, so that's it for now. Like I said, I'm kind of impressed that for 3.5 cylinders, it goes right on down the road. Probably drive it every day. Eventually I'll get this dash put back together and get this thing so you can drive it. Would you roll that window up when you get out? After you get out? Yeah, that one. I'm gonna go cool off for a minute, then I gotta clean out the garage so they can put the plumbing in. But yeah, that's it for now. Okay, I'm out here working on this 62 Plymouth, and the gauge cluster was laying on the seat because the previous owner took it out for whatever reason. And I am going to put it back together, but I'm going to make a couple little changes. Let me show you what I got going. So this was already mostly apart. I took a couple screws out of it and took it out, took the speedometer out. One problem is there's supposed to be these rubber bushings that sit around these screws, sit around these holes, so that way the speedometer doesn't transfer noise. Well, they're gone, so these little inserts here are coming off. See, and we're just gonna screw it solid, and then hopefully it'll work like it's supposed to. I don't know if any of this stuff works. We're probably not going to be hooking the ammeter back up because they're known for burning cars to the ground. This is the clock blinking plug. If the car had a clock, that's where it would go. And so I took it out. Let me show you what I'm going to do here. I'm going to be very careful. So my plan originally was to cut this out and put this cheap tachometer in there. But one, I mean, this is just a cheap Chinese eBay piece of crap. One, I didn't want to destroy anything. I mean, I'm sure you could find these things cheap and easy, but I don't want to mess it up if I don't have to. Two, I want to be able to put it back. So what I figured I could actually do instead of drilling this out is put it in backwards. So we put it in backwards, and I need to drill a hole back here that you'd never see anywhere for the wires to come out, and then it will sit in there. It'll just sit in there. It doesn't have to be bolted down or anything. And so if you ever decide to do it, put it back, you can put it back. I even put the cluster back in the dash to see if it would hit anything, and it doesn't. So this is a good thing. But before we do that, we're going to put this all back together. And when I do wire it, I plan to wire everything in here to the board, and then we just have to run the green tack wire out. So we'll get on that. It was all hot to get this cluster back in. I forgot that one of the reasons why I haven't done it yet is to try to fix this. So it looks like one of the previous owners just basically took a hammer and beat the old ignition switch in. I don't know why they would do that, but so now we're going to try to straighten that out enough to get the new ignition switch into the hole, and I've got a nut somewhere. Or I'll have to find one. I don't know. I might have to get a big ass washer. Who knows? But I'll try to fix it. Okay. I think I might have missed a couple things, but I got the lights working in the gauge cluster. I got the tachometer in. As you can see, it fits pretty well. And the light color isn't even off by that bad. I thought it was going to be super bright with an LED, but it's not. Turned out in the headlight switch, the contacts were green, and then underneath the green they were black. So I had to get some fine sandpaper and clean that up. I still need to go in here and hook up the speedometer cable. I added a ground to the chassis of the gauge, into the chassis of the car, or the body of the car. That way it wasn't dependent on the screw connections. I got that. I had to rebuild that. Basically, like the guts of the light socket, the wire had ripped out of them, and so I found another socket and I put the contact or the wire in there. I got to hook the speedometer cable back up. I don't know if the gas gauge is going to work. We'll find out about the temperature gauge. Ammeter. Let's see. Headlights. The high beam switch. Oops, that's not the high beam switch. That's the high beam switch is stuck. Okay. Let's see what the gauges say. Okay, oil pressure light's working. I didn't notice any movement in the gauges, but they're probably not going to do anything until At least the engine gets warmed up. I don't have a gas tank in it, so I don't know if the gas gauge even works. I gotta find a nut for this ignition switch. Yeah, I mean, those needles aren't moving at all. So I don't know if that'll work. We'll find out. Everything was kind of corroded on the back there. It doesn't look bad, but there were bad connections everywhere, so I may have to go through and fix everything. Alrighty, we're gonna go ahead and change this water pump. You can see. How much play it's got. So I was afraid that bearing was going to completely go and then the fan go into the radiator and ruin this radiator, which is pretty good. I need to flush it though. So back to work. Well, keeping up with my video on this car. So I did change the water pump. We took this to our cruise show or car show, cruise night, and drove it around. And I mean, with it running bad, it wasn't the greatest thing. I did have to play with the throttle linkage a bit because one of the previous owners kind of jury-rigged a cable into it where it's supposed to have a bell crank and a dealio, and this is a later model carburetor. So what he did have going on is it was pulling, this was at a 90 degree, and it was trying to pull that straight down, which you can't do. It needs to be in an arc. I do have a pulley somewhere that I was going to weld onto the end of this so that it would be more like that. It's actually not too bad right now the way it sits, so we'll go with that. This car, like I said, it doesn't run very good, but you can drive it. One of the big things with it that's not good is, I don't want to rip the carpets up because the carpets are actually intact. They're dirty as hell, but they're not all torn. And so under the seat and into the back here, especially there's no floor at all. The muffler tailpipe has rotted off of it and it's gone. So the muffler ends right there. So all that exhaust comes into the car. So when we were driving it around the cruise night, we had all the windows down. I put these tires on temporarily. I need to clean the wheels up, but they're just there so I can drive it because the other ones were ready to pop. This, again, is so bad. The inner structure's gone, the outer structure's gone. There's not even enough there to try to patch it. I wish I could put something around the hinges so that they don't fail, but nothing's gonna happen. All the lights do work. The reverse lights work, which was an option. I don't know if the dealer put them on or if it came out of the factory that way, but most of these Savoys only have the red lights on the sides. And those are expensive, by the way. It's got a lot of rust bubbling up. So, I mean, realistically, this car isn't a car that I would consider for restoration. It's so rough, you would have to replace almost the entire body. And it's just a four-door Savoy. I got no problem with four doors, but a lot of people don't like them. So I did get the gauge cluster back in. I went through all that work putting that tachometer in, and it works, but I forgot to switch it to 6-cylinder, so it's sitting on 8-cylinder, and it doesn't read right. I need to find screws to put this back in. For whatever reason, the vacuum controls don't work. I'm not sure why. This could be a pretty cool car to go down the road. But, it's something where we'll see what happens. When I put the head on it, when I swap the head out, and it's back to running on 6 cylinders, I'm going to put a tailpipe on it. That's just going to come off of here and then come out just a 90 degree, just to get the exhaust away from the car. And I'll go to driving it unless I sell it before then. I've got an air cleaner for it. So I'll go to driving it and just see. See what happens, see how it drives. As far as parts go, I mean, there's quite a few parts that are still decent. Nothing's perfect. I mean, this trim's kind of dinged up. It could be straightened. The grill's in pretty good shape. The hood has the extra trim on it. I don't think it's original. It's got that trim that goes back there where the Savoys usually only had that piece. But, you know, wiper arms, windshield, back window, back bumper's decent. Not perfect, but decent. Front bumper's got a pretty good bow to it. Obviously, this is the rougher side. There's that piece of trim that's missing. All this. Fenders can be straightened out pretty easily, but there's some rust. There's some Bondo here. So, see that corner of the bumper's pushed in. But, I don't know. I don't really want to spend any time on it because I want to spend the time on this, but I need money to fix that. There's another thing that popped up that is going to require money. So I need to get this thing running and driving and viable so I can sell it. But you saw that it actually runs. Well, it doesn't run good, but it drives pretty good. Goes down the road pretty good. Transmission works great. Rear end works great. Doesn't seem to smoke really. I mean, I'm sure the valve seals are bad, so it might smoke a little. But I haven't seen it beyond it idling a long time and then puffing of smoke and then it goes away. Again, it could make somebody a pretty damn cool daily driver, weekend cruiser. You could slap some Bondo and all that stuff and throw a quick paint job on it and, you know, have a pretty decent car for a few years, but it's just not something I want to keep. I've got way too much stuff going.